It is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Brad Buck. Dr. Buck was appointed by Governor Terry Branstad in 2013 to serve as director of the Iowa Department of Education. Buck, a longtime educator and school administrator, was born and raised in Cedar Rapids. As director, he is focused on helping Iowa's education system implement this important work in a way that respects and supports both the individuality of Iowa communities and the vision and priorities set at the state level. Buck began his career in education in 1992 as a middle school science teacher in the Ankeny Community School District. He taught for 5 years before taking on a number of administrative roles in the Waukee, Hudson, and North Mahaska school districts. Most recently, Buck was superintendent of the Saydell Community School District in Des Moines. Buck is a former president of School Administrators of Iowa and was named SAI's Iowa Middle School Level Principal of the Year in 2004. He has held positions on various state-level committees and initiatives. They include collaborating for Iowa's Kids, a joint effort by the Iowa Department of Education, the area education agencies, and school districts to support and scale up evidence based on practices across the state. Buck is a graduate of Iowa State University, where he received a PhD and a master's degree, and the University of Northern Iowa, where he received a bachelor's degree in biology. He lives in Urbandale with his wife, Tracy, and their 6 children. Additionally, a scan through the 1987 yearbook revealed that Dr. Buck was also an NHS member during his junior and senior years at Jefferson. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Brad Buck to Jefferson.
Well, good afternoon. Now I'm glad I made it my junior and senior year since it's been publicly announced. Okay, so first of all, thank you. Thanks for having me here today. Do we have seniors in the room? So we have some seniors. Is this all seniors? Okay, very good. So we do have a few. Good. So, and thank you to Mary and her team for inviting me here today. There's some questions. They sent some of those to give me sort of a preview. Do you guys even know where the Department of Education is? Okay, so Iowa Department of Education is located in Des Moines. So if anybody been to Des Moines much? Been to Des Moines much? So if you go right into the center of town, so you take 80 over down into 235, we're right in the center of town, and we're just off of 235 to the south. So we're in Des Moines, and we're responsible for sort of all the regulatory functions of schools and checking to make sure schools are doing what's expected of them and to provide leadership. So some of the questions today are really great ones around the types of things that we're leading on. And so that would be things like the Iowa Core, teacher leadership and compensation system, and kind of a number of other things. But rather than me give sort of my long-winded and otherwise somewhat boring intro, I'm more interested in getting into the questions that have been provided, and maybe are you guys going to do some of that? Okay. So they've got some questions. I'll be happy to do those. If questions come up as they unfold, are they free to ask questions as well, or is this sort of a moderated thing? Are we willing to turn it loose to these folks too, if need be?
We have the questions already.
Oh, very good. All right. So you don't have any questions? Well, yeah. All right.
At our first NHS meeting of the year, our NHS group generated questions for you, many of which are connected to the pillars of National Honor Society: scholarship, leadership, service, and character. Our first question, though, is about your time at Jefferson. How would you describe your Jefferson experience? How did it influence you moving forward?
This is going to sound goofy, but it's true. I loved my Jefferson experience. I had a great experience at Jefferson High School, and the reason I would say that is I had a number of influential teachers that made a real difference in my life. And I don't know, is Mr. Wojtowicz still around? No? Just retired last year. Okay, so Woj, he and I had him for sophomore English. And I had him as a senior in some kind of AP English course or something, I suppose. But beyond all of that, he worked hard to build a relationship with me. Mr. Becker worked hard to build a relationship with me, a former science teacher. There's a number of folks like that. And so what I would say is part of the reason why my experience at Jefferson was as valuable and positive as it was is because I had some adults that really took time to invest in me and were very much concerned about my future. So can I give you a little story about Mr. Wojtowicz? So here's the deal with Mr. Wojtowicz, and this is how a teacher can influence lives, and they may not even understand how they're influencing lives. So I hate to tell you this part because your principal's going to cringe. but this is a full honesty moment as it relates to my Cedar Rapids Jefferson experience. Are you guys taping this? Oh. Well, maybe I won't tell this. No, it's fine. So when I was a sophomore, when I started my sophomore year, so it was a 10th through 12th grade facility, right? So when I started my 10th grade year, I came to high school, thought it was, pretty cool to be in high school. My neighbor down the street was a senior, so he could drive me to school. So I was like, cool, like I rolled up with a senior, which may or may not be a big deal, but it was pretty cool at that time. Probably about a 1978 Monte Carlo, white Landau top. Funny what you remember. Anyway, so I didn't probably take school as seriously the first few weeks of my sophomore year as I otherwise should have. And I was in Mr. Witowitz's class, and we were working on some kind of group project. I think we were reading like a separate piece or something like that. And he came over to my desk, and he put a sticky note on my desk, and it said, "Always do your best." And I thought to myself, that just like pierced me, because I really respected him. I thought he was great. He could tell I was sort of jick-jacking around. And so I laminated it, and the way I laminated it was this. This is 1984 or something. You're like, is he really that old? It's true. I took Scotch tape. Right? I Scotch taped over this note so that it would stay intact, and I taped it to my mirror. And so every day when I got up and around in the morning, it was a daily reminder to me to always do my best. Now, do you think when Woj stuck that note on my desk that it was going to be that kind of a motivator for me through my high school career? Probably not, right? Probably just going to get thrown away, et cetera. So that's the kind of example I would give of a teacher impacting a life, and as a result, created positive experiences for me at Jefferson. So,
what would you consider the most important step you took in life to achieve where you are today?
Well, so I should start with one thing, because I'd feel remiss if I didn't. So Mom and Dad were great. They always worried about me, always said, "You're going to go to college," so sort of that sort of thing, which was sort of weird because neither one of them went to college, but that was a priority for them. So to acknowledge that my parents play an important role in this, and that I sort of listened to them, and I listen to them now more than I did when I was 17. I would happily acknowledge that. But probably one of the most important steps is, and I didn't really probably even realize it at the time, is a number of people in my life, and this is true even to this day, they have mentored me and coached me and made decisions and helped me along in my journey. So the Mr. Witowitz example, Mr. Becker, when I was first a teacher, there was a guy named Mr. Kubicek. There was another teacher named Mrs. Yeager. They helped bring me along. When I wanted to become a principal, a guy named Mr. Osborne took me under his wing, and he coached and mentored me. When I wanted to become a superintendent, I mean, so you hear this story, right? So I would say the ability to connect with folks in meaningful ways that are already sort of leading the way in these situations and roles. So find those coaches and mentors, and then most importantly, listen to them, because they know stuff. Okay, so I would say along the way, that's probably what's been most helpful to me to sort of get me to where I am right now. So.
What's the best advice that you have for students on discovering and following your passion?
Somewhere along the way in my sophomore or junior year, I figured out that I wanted to be a teacher. So I started to talk to people that were really great teachers. So listen to where your heart is taking you. And what I would also say is don't be dissuaded by folks saying that may never work. I just left, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Iowa Big, the big school kind of concept. But beyond the big school concept is they're in sort of a business incubator environment there. So lots of people with really great ideas and the things they're really passionate about, and they're taking a risk and jumping in and trying to make something out of those. So life doesn't always have to be a risk, but I think I would encourage you to the things that matter most to you and the things you enjoy most, that you really do try to pursue whatever it is within your passion area. Because one of the things you find when you get to be my age is you spend a lot of time at work. And I think probably the majority of a person's life time that you're actually awake, especially, is while you're at work. So to the extent that you can find things that you're passionate about so you don't feel like you're getting up to go to work every day. I have to tell you, my day today, I said to my wife this morning, I can't believe this is my job today. Like my job today is I get to get up, I get to go learn about this really innovative school, and then I get to go talk to some students at my old high school. That's a pretty good job, right? I mean, that's like a job. That's my work today. Can you tell? I mean, can you see the sweat? I mean, I am rocking it. So find something you like to do. Make sure you chase that passion, and even when it gets hard, I'd say stick with it. So,
what would you say is your biggest success or mistake, and what did you learn from it, and how did that impact you in moving forward?
This is snarky. So I would say my biggest success, and this is maybe sound funny, is I have a great wife. This isn't a sort of silly thing to say. And I don't know if she chose me or I chose her or we chose one another, but the way it worked out is great. She is a great lady, and we have 6 kids. I need to edit that bio. We only have 5 that live with us now. One is up at college now, but so I would say that's probably been one of my biggest successes because she's been my biggest champion. She's a great partner to me, and hopefully I am to her. I worry, though, the snarky thing I was going to say is if you asked her what her biggest mistake was, I'd worry that maybe the reverse answer is I married this Hanyak named Brad Buck. But I would say that was a success. I would say, and I'd go back to the follow your mentor and the coaching piece. I'd say really just try to figure out who these people in your life are that really are caring about you and worried about your future and do know things about sort of your future steps and are willing to ask you tough questions. So some of the people in my life, one of the favorite mentors I have in my life, one of the things I most appreciate about her is when we meet, she asks me really difficult, awkward questions that really force me to think. And so that's how our relationship is set up. So we sit down, we do a little smile chit-chat, and then it gets right into, am I doing the best work I can for the students of Iowa? If we were going to do one next best thing for the students of Iowa, what would that look like? What's keeping us from doing that? I mean, it's those kinds of robust questions. So if you can find people like that, and all the time I know that she's worried about my future and my and me as a person. So that just linking with people in really meaningful ways is probably it's a success and maybe an ongoing success. Though I probably wasn't smart enough to figure out that I didn't invent that. Biggest mistake, I will tell you, one of the biggest mistakes I've made, and this is a Cedar Rapids Jefferson thing. I really wish, this is all honesty, that I'd done show choir. Isn't that a funny thing to say? Like, I watch my kids do show choir now. I had no idea what show choir, like West Side Delegation, right? Is it still that? West Side? Yeah, okay, great. So had a chance to do that. Chose not to do that. Chose to get a little job after school. So, and so I didn't do that. I would say, I don't know if it's a mistake, but maybe it's a regret. I would say if I go back and do one thing in high school, it'd be show choir. So, jazz hands.
What philosophies guide how you act as a leader?
I would say one thing to always keep in mind in leading is it's best to be not the smartest person in the room. So surround yourself with really bright people and listen to them. And so I would say one of the most important parts of leadership when I think about leadership is the power of collaboration, the power of not taking credit, the power of taking blame. So as I think of myself as a leader, when things go well, all the credit goes to other people as it should. And when things don't go well, all the blame should go to me. So I think it's those kinds of things. I think it's making sure you get lots of the right people in the room. If you're going to make decisions as you're leading, be thinking critically about who should be in the room and who should be a part of this conversation and decision making. And then try to make sure that they are in the room. So my leadership style, I would say, is just, and what's been successful is this notion of collaboration, trusting really smart people, and really trusting them to go ahead and do the work. So once things are decided, trust that these great people will go on then and take the steps necessary to deliver on things. I'm a Ronald Reagan fan. So one of the things Ronald Reagan said was trust but verify. So while you're also trusting your leadership team and making sure that they're doing the things that they say they're going to do, it doesn't intermittently hurt to ask the question, hey, how are we coming along on this project? So, and hopefully you have a relationship built with them such, because the power of relationships is the heart of all this work. Hopefully you have a relationship built with them such that they would say, this is rocking along, and they're giving you a really accurate picture of it, or they're willing to say, this is a mess right now. let's talk some more about this mess and how we might be able to get it back on track. So really, to me, it's about relationships, collaboration, people. I remember when I first started out as a principal, one of the people said to me, it's not about programs, it's about people. And I always thought, that's just crazy. If you put a really good program into place, the people are less important. And what I actually found out over this sort of lifetime of leadership work is the people are the absolutely most important part, and they'll make whatever program it is run well, and hopefully in this case, the benefit of students. So that's probably leadership for me.
How can we help specialized education to make kids more excited about their future careers?
That's a great one. So I think Iowa Big is an example of trying to do that. So it's personalizing your experience. So whether that's a notion like that or whether it's things within your own school, what can we do to help students find their passion and then be skilled in such a way that they can follow that passion? So it's one thing to say, I'd really like to be the next whatever that is and be passionate about doing it, but it's also important that you have the necessary writing skills, presentation skills, mathematical skills, whatever those things are in order to be able to do it, and how do we personalize that and have it in real time? So I think one of the challenges, my own kids, so I have a high school freshman, like I mentioned. I have a junior and a sophomore and an 8th grader and a 5th grader and a 3rd grader. So, yeah, I know, it's weird. So so even as I talk to them about their experience, school in a lot of ways looks now like it did when I was at Cedar Rapids Jefferson in the mid-'80s. And so to the extent that we can do more with technology to better personalize this experience for students and make it authentic and meaningful, I think that's really kind of the path that we're all thinking about. And technology is not going to be the answer. It's a tool in sort of figuring all this out, but it will not ultimately just be the answer. We can't just hand you every kid an iPhone and now school's personalized, specialized, and the most exciting place to be, right? It still takes great teachers and lots of other things. So, and if you're an iPhone sort of snob, then I don't know, Samsung, or I don't know what all the different ones are. Yeah.
How would you like to see the Cedar Rapids School District and others across the state incorporate technology in order to better the education system?
It feels like a setup deal, doesn't it? Yeah, so really the technology thing's an interesting one. When I was at Sadell as a superintendent, we did a one-to-one. Do you guys have one-to-one laptop initiative of any kind here, or do you have tech or that kind of thing? And that's not unusual. So we try to do, and it's a smaller scale, so one of the challenges Cedar Rapids would face, of course, is the scale of what that would look like because of so many students. So one of the worries we had when we implemented a technology initiative is when we give students a laptop, is it really going to change their experience? So did we go from teacher has a PowerPoint to the student has a PowerPoint now at their desk? Instead of doing a worksheet, are they now going to do a worksheet only it happens to be on a computer? Does that make some sense to folks? So I think as schools and districts work to implement more technology in school, I think the question they should really be asking themselves is, in what way will this technology enhance the experience for our students? And so I think that's probably the challenge. So what I'd like to see is discussion in districts around technology and what technology could do for the students. But on its face, I don't just encourage a district to just rush in and buy every student a laptop or something and just expect different outcomes, because I don't think that's really probably reasonable. So it's just trying to figure out, well, if we had tech in every student's hand, what would that be like, and what would it do to improve the experience for all of you?
What do you see as a pressing issue facing high schools for students and their communities?
You're probably all aware of this. The world is getting more competitive. And as I look at how the world's getting more competitive, I think about how are we sure that every student has the necessary skills and attributes needed to be successful in this new environment you're going into. So I'll give you my life example, and it sort of probably identifies this in some ways. So I grew up, you guys know where West Del Mall is? Okay, you know where Newport's Florist is? Everybody know where Newport's is? It's on Wilson Avenue. Everybody know where this is? Okay, well, it's not too far from Westdale. So I grew up over there, and where did my dad work? My dad worked at Rockwell International for 30 years, and he started there as a drill press operator, and then he went to a skilled tool and die guy, but essentially he worked a manufacturing job. My mom worked in a credit union, so she was a loan officer for a credit union, and then she did payroll stuff. So what happened with both of them is they left high school. They did not get any kind of certification, training, etc. beyond high school, and they were able to step into middle-class lifestyle. So we had a little house and a car and family vacations in the station wagon, and boy, that's creating a whole new set of memories in my head right now. Now I'm in Colorado in the back of the station wagon, ready to vomit because we're going through the mountains, and it was one of those old station wagons where they had the backward-facing seat. You probably don't recall any of this. Okay, so one row, and then the seat in the back would flip up, and then you could look out the back. And I'll tell you, going up mountains, facing out backwards, it's a nauseating experience. At any rate, so as we think about families and communities and the challenge it faces, really walking out of high school now and hoping to step into that middle income sort of lifestyle is really a lot bigger challenge than it was when I was your age in school. So what that's really going to take is each of you thinking about your plan beyond high school graduation. So your high school diploma matters, and it's an important thing, so we need to make sure that every student gets that high school diploma. But beyond that high school diploma, what is your next step in your plan? And that may be community college as the next appropriate step, and getting some kind of certification and credentialing there. That may be a four-year college, if that seems right for you. It may be a two-year degree on your way to a four-year degree. One of the things I tried to get my daughter to do, but I couldn't get her to even look at it at all. I have 5 more chances. I thought she should go to a community college at least for the first year because you save a ton of money, you get some of those credits out of the way, you don't accrue debt. So, but I couldn't get her to do that. But I really think, so this challenge is, how do we see that high school diploma is really just one step in the next step of decision making about what's next. And for some that might be the military, so you go down the military path in order to be able to get enough money together perhaps to go to school, or you get a really viable set of skills and training through your experiences in the military. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge now is you sort of, in my parents' era, you could sort of just graduate from high school and end up having a nice sort of middle income lifestyle. And I don't think it's quite that easy anymore. So I don't mean to scare you. There's probably more opportunities than ever. I was out at Kirkwood. You guys know where Kirkwood is, right? I was out at Kirkwood, I don't know, a couple months ago. I hadn't been there in 30 years. Kirkwood does not look like Kirkwood looked 30 years ago. They got a 5-star hotel, and I mean, they had all kinds of stuff going on out there. So the community college has done a nice job in this work. But so hopefully that's on point with it.
As director of Iowa's Department of Education, what is your main goal, and how are you working to achieve that?
So my main goal is this: every door open for every student. That's really my main goal. Upon graduation, every door open for every student. That's really what drives me every day when I get up in the morning. So what does that really mean? It means 2 things. One of them is everyone graduates. So we do not have a 100% graduation rate in Iowa, and we need to get to a 100% graduation rate in Iowa, and we're making progress on that. And then once a student graduates from high school, he or she has a plan that's viable for an amazing future. And so best hope is this pre-K-12 experience that you've had allows you to go on and do whatever you would like to do. So if that means a 2-year degree, great. If that means some other credentialing, great. Military, 4-year, you've kind of heard me say it already. But really the best hope for me is upon graduation, every door open for every student. Because I don't want anything that we're doing in schools to impact the future choices that each of you have. I want each of you to have the best, most amazing experience you can have through graduation and then beyond graduation. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Maybe not today.
The Common Core is a set of common standards that outline what students should be learning in their classes and guide teachers and school districts in their work. We recognize that these standards impact us as students, yet we also know the Common Core has become a controversial issue. As seniors who will be voting in 2016, what do you feel is important for us to know about the Common Core?
Voting in 2016. So you know who I voted for the first time I could vote for president? Ross Perot. You guys even know that name, Ross Perot? So years and years and years ago, I don't remember who was running, Bill Clinton and I think the first Bush going for a repeat. Does that sound about right? Yeah, maybe. So those two are running. I love what Ross Perot had to say. I love the third-party thing. I love the independent notion. He'd get on TV and he'd say, and then A, and then 2. And I mean, it's just, I love this guy. I mean, just really interesting. So my first vote was for the independent third-party candidate that had absolutely no chance of winning. So what do you need to know about the Common Core? So really, I don't know how much you followed sort of the Iowa Core, Common Core conversation, but really all those are intended to be as a set of academic standards. So they say things in them like, in 4th grade, you'll learn order of operation in mathematics. And so you would all, I guess, know what order of operation is. It's got parentheses, it's got brackets. There's an order to how you would do those math problems. So the core itself has become a political topic for a variety of reasons. My sense is it's not so much about what's contained in the standards as much as lots of other things. So one of the things, so the federal government is supposed to have some say in education, but not a ton of say in education, depending on who you talk to. A lot of people think that these core standards came from the federal government. And so because of that, they sort of reject them on a hand. Their argument would be that the state or even local school districts should have control over what the students are taught. And so that's where a lot of this question is. So as future voters, here's what I'd really ask. Well, let me start the question. How many have seen a political ad? How many have seen one in the last 24 hours? Right? Okay, so Joni Ernst is a horrible person, and so is Bruce Braley. Right? I mean, these are some of the most terrible people that could ever have existed on the entire planet if all we do is watch the commercials. So my real advice, so the core, I would say the core is really just about being about academic standards, but beyond that is I think about all of you voting. 1, do vote. Do vote. Voting is one of the most important things that Americans get to do. It's a privilege. My wife would say it's cost her to have jury duty 3 times, but it's still important. So first of all, vote. Second, beyond that, become informed about what the issues are and what these candidates stand for. So these commercials that come on, I cringe at some of them because they'll take like a 5-second snippet or a 5-word snippet of somebody and then just cast this entire view of what this person is about or believes or whatnot. So as you become voters, 1, please vote, and 2, please become informed beyond what's on the television. Because what's on the television, does anybody watch the debates? Anybody like it to that extent? Anybody watched any of the debates? Okay, so I'll go back to the first thing. 1, vote. Let's do it in a different order. 1, become informed on the positions of the candidates. Then 2, vote. Maybe that's probably a better way to do it. So just to give you that encouragement, because what you see on TV I don't think is probably the exact best way to think about how to vote for somebody. Although it must work, right? Because they're spending millions of dollars on making it happen.
What is your viewpoint regarding the balance between standardized state expectations and an individual school/district authority?
Well, Iowa is, so Iowa's a local control state, and I absolutely believe in local control. And that is where I would say I would like to see nearly 100% authority in local school districts to bring it to life. So what's a book you guys have read recently in school? What's a novel? What is it? Oh, okay. So Grapes of Wrath is an interesting book. So I'm saying that only because I'm thinking back to my having read Grapes of Wrath. So the reason that I'm asking you that question is this. For whatever reason, it's been chosen that Grapes of Wrath is the absolute right book for all of you to learn whatever those standards are. That's all a local decision. So at Cedar Rapids Jefferson, you're reading Grapes of Wrath. At another school or district, they're reading something else. Another one, they're reading something else. All of which is intended to lead back to, can you do, I would guess it's like literary analysis and some of that kind of thing, right? So the state would say, we have an interest in saying every student needs to understand literary analysis or whatever those standards are. But however that school and those teachers decide is the best way for their students to learn it, we're going to trust those teachers in those schools to make really good decisions about what it is each of you need in order to learn sort of that big standard. So that's absolutely where I'd be. I absolutely trust local schools and districts to make great decisions. So we're not going to tell you what books to read or not read.
Through legislation, the teacher leadership and compensation system was created. The Cedar Rapids School District applied for and received this grant. What is your hope for the teacher leadership initiative, and what is the impact that it will have on students?
Cedar Rapids Community School District, highest scoring district on the whole thing. Pretty nice, right? Way to go, Cedar Rapids. So teacher leadership and compensation system. Essentially what it is districts are identifying teachers in their system, and they are moving into leadership roles in order to support other teachers. So to provide professional development and learning experiences, to coach other teachers, to mentor other teachers. I mean, you sort of hear in that example what those words mean. So best hope for me is this. One is that it really does lead to even better teaching in our classrooms. So we have lots of great teaching and lots of great classrooms all over the state. I really believe with additional teachers coaching, mentoring, and guiding other teachers and providing training and professional development experiences, that our teachers will get even better. So that's really one outcome. One of the other ones, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this because I absolutely believe it, we are in what I would consider to be the best time to become a teacher in the state. In the history of the state of Iowa, now is a great time to become a teacher. So if you've been out there, so seniors in the room, if you've been thinking to yourself, I wonder if I'd like to do this teaching thing, I would tell you this teaching thing, now is a great time to become a teacher. And one of the reasons I would say that is this. When I was a teacher, I started out as a teacher and I taught 7th grade life science. I loved teaching middle school kids because they're like half nuts and you never knew what you were going to get. It was great. So I did that. My first year of teaching and my 5th year of teaching looked pretty much the same. I was still teaching 7th grade life science in Ankeny. So why did I become a principal? I became a principal because I wanted a different experience leading adults and sort of just a different new set of experiences. So the path in teaching was if you were teaching, you were a teacher, whether that was your first year of teaching, your 5th year of teaching, your 10th year of teaching, teaching sort of felt the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people like that and they stay and do it 35 years and that's awesome. We absolutely need people to continue to do that. If you go into teaching now and you find yourself in a classroom doing that and you love it, you can continue to do that for 35 years. If you would like to provide leadership to other teachers and coach and mentor and provide training for other teachers, you now will have a pathway in the teaching profession where I can become a teacher, then I can move to a teacher leadership role. So I'm still really around the students a little bit differently than when I became a principal. I'm working with other teachers. I have a chance to do some leadership, but I don't also have to be the principal because your principal's with us today and he would maybe readily acknowledge that there's some other stuff that goes along with being a principal that is not the most fun thing to do all the time, right? And so you would be able to, maybe that's not true. Maybe every single moment of every day is, yeah, perfect, right? Yeah, perfect. I love it. Perfect. That's good. And that's why I would say that. So just looking back now, my daughter that's a sophomore, she indicates intermittently that she would like to be a teacher. And every time she says she'd like to be a teacher, I say to her, I think you ought to think more about becoming a teacher. I really do. I think it's a good time as any to become a teacher. So we need lots of really bright, smart, talented people continuing to join the profession. So it's not a teacher commercial. I just really believe it, right? I mean, it's just, I believe it. And I think it's one of the products of the teacher leadership system is attracting and retaining high-quality teachers. So,
how do you see education changing or evolving in the 21st century?
I think there is going to be more variety in experiences for students. And I'm not even 100% sure what that means. So there's going to be more technology infused in some ways at some point. There's going to be more of these sort of differentiated experiences, whether that's internships, whether that's school-to-work experiences, more connections between high schools and community colleges so that students have even more opportunities to start working on those associate degrees or other trainings and certifications. I think it's just going to get, I think we're going to start to blur the lines between what kindergarten through 12th grade education looks like and what now and where it's headed in the future. So I think it's going to become more of a blended environment. And I don't know at what rate that'll happen or what's going to help drive that. But I think it'll become, I don't think, I would be surprised a little bit if, I graduated in 87. What's that? 2014. How many years is that? 27? Is that 27? Oh, that's startling. I would be interested to see if I were standing here 27 years from now. I would be very surprised if school looks as much as school looks like now. Although I think in fairness, if I'd have been standing here 27 years ago, how much different does it look? That'd be a fair question. So, but I think it's going to accelerate. I think it's just our world's accelerating. So.
How does having children influence how you view education?
I'm more patient, probably. So when my kids come home from school and they tell me stories about what happened at school, I think about my days in school, and so it also sort of reminds me of we'll believe half of what the teacher will believe half of what the kids say when they come to school if you'll believe half of what they say when they get home, because maybe the story's not exactly right. So I think it's about probably a lot more about understanding and patience, and also just the real work that it is to get kids educated. So even with my own kids, they come home, they bring their stuff home, I help sign it, I intermittently help them with their homework. I just think about that whole experience, and then I think about the teacher on the other end of that working really hard to try to meet the individual needs of my own children. So what can I do as a parent to be a support, knowing that they're working as hard as they can on the other side to give my kids a great experience. So what's the actual question again?
The original question was, how does having children influence how you view education?
Yeah. I also have, so another influence would be this. Amongst my 6 children, they have varying degrees of ability levels. So an example would be this. I have a son, my 8th grade son has autism. So he thinks very differently about the world than probably most do. So one of the important lessons for me as dad and my own kids is how does the system respond, and how thankful I am that people are as caring as they are about my kid. So I have seen people go above and beyond for my own children to make sure they have great experiences, and especially in the case of my son with autism. So, yeah.
What kind of mindset is important to have during college or life to be successful?
I would say, are you guys talking growth mindset here at all? And the growth mindset is there's a certain set of things I know now. What do I need to continue to learn about in order to get even better at what I want to become? So this growth mindset around there is no end to the learning. So you may think to yourself, man, when I get to high school, or when I get done with high school, I'm out, right? Well, then you get to your 4-year degree and I'm out. Well, even if you run out of degrees, and maybe you don't ever run out of degrees, this notion of I need to continue to learn, and my orientation in life needs to be I have a growth mindset and an action mindset, I think will serve you well. So just this notion that there's always more to learn, and there's always people with whom to network. So it never hurts to continue to know more people, because you never know when that relationship might be a benefit to them or a benefit to you. So I would just talk a lot about growth mindset, this notion that I need to keep growing and growing. So.
Service is a component of NHS. What role do you think it should play in a person's life?
My philosophical vantage point is it should be your heart. Best case scenario is, and so in my case in leadership, I think a servant's heart is the way to be thinking about how you approach things. So to the extent that each of you can become less so that other people can become more, that to me is an important part of this service component. Beyond that, I think it should be actionable. So if you have opportunities with churches or clubs or that kind of thing to get engaged in service, and my guess is many of you are because you're sitting here today as part of an NHS type experience, that's great. One of the things I would say about your generation as I observe it is you are more socially minded and socially conscious than other generations may have been. So I was raised in a generation in the 80s. If you're familiar with the 80s at all, money, 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 money. That was the 80s. 80s was spend. It was kind of all this stuff. The generation I see, and as you guys are getting coming into adulthood here, it's really a lot more service orientation just in how you think about the world. And I see it in my own kids, and I see it in lots of places I go. So if you aren't there in your thinking as it relates to the importance of service, I'd encourage you to think about it. If you are a person that's already does lots of service type work, I'd encourage you to stick with that, because I think it should be a part of sort of each segment of our lives here.
Mr. Ratoix gave you an important piece of advice that stuck with you. Do you have a piece of advice that's important for us to take with us?
I want to be really careful about what I say. For me, and this is one of the things I talk about with my own kids a lot, and it's, well, one of the things is this: keep learning. Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning, because you are not being raised in an environment where a static amount of learning is going to be okay. It's just not going to serve you well. So one piece of advice I would give is this: keep learning, and another piece of advice is listen to people who know stuff. So that's pretty scientific, right? But I will tell you, over the course of my lifetime, continuing to learn and being willing and even excited about listening to what others have to say to help further enhance and encourage my thinking has done nothing generally but serve me well. So what you also hear embedded in that, of course, is the importance of education, the importance of relationships, the importance of, maybe not as overtly, but the importance of family. So that's some advice I would give.
Dr. Buck, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. And before we close, we have one final question. Why is it great to be a Jayhawk?
Well, isn't the answer self-evident? It's just great to be a Jayhawk because it's great to be a Jayhawk. I mean, really, that doesn't make sense to folks? Yeah, so I would say this. I am so proud that I'm a Jefferson alum. If you haven't seen me tweet about it, then you're obviously not following me on Twitter, because every chance I get, I love to tout what's going on here and tout my experience. I can honestly say, if you saw my water, what's the ice bucket challenge thing? I had my Cedar Rapids Jefferson t-shirt. I wear a Jefferson Jayhawk t-shirt probably about every weekend. So I had a great experience here. I think this education I received here has served me well, and I wish, honestly, nothing but the best for each of you. If there's something I can do to help any of you as you move forward, just let me know what it might be, and I can at least try to take a stab at it. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Buck, for taking the time to be here with us today and for offering your insights regarding education and leadership. We certainly learned a great deal. Lastly, because you just gave us your perspective on why it's great to be a Jayhawk, we wanted to present you with a small token of our appreciation. Again, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
My family's going to be happy. Another shirt for me to wear on the weekend. Sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. At Dr. Brad Buck. At Dr. Brad Buck. Follow this. On Saturday, I will have this shirt on. I'll tweet it out. Me in full regalia. All right? And it won't be any challenge at all to do that. Okay. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.